So we got this engine that was shipped to us from a Mercedes-Benz dealer, and they were so nice, they sent us all the specialty tools for this engine. They bagged them up for us because this engine apparently is $60,000 from the dealer. They sent us the parts, some of the stuff they think we'll need. But apparently what they did was they did this motor themselves and messed it up. So we're going to tear it down, get into it, and find out what we can do to take care of them. You know it ain't going to be cheap when you get these 3 letters on a motor, AMG. The dealer sent this to me, and the story was that they rolled in main bearings in this motor. And when I show you this main girdle, you're going to be like,
you pretty much have to tear the motor completely down to get to that point.
I'm like, okay. So let's flip it over and let's look at this main girdle. We got stuff in here, and that don't look good. But let's whip this bad boy over, man. Oh my gosh.
So that's why I was working to check the timing before I pulled my pump off. That's where I'm going to start, is get this pump off, and then I'm just going to pull this thing off and see what I got.
This looks like this will take you, what, 15 minutes, Joey?
10.
That's a heck of an oil pump drive. They got two impellers on that oil pump.
2 sumps.
We got a pickup here, and we got 2 pickups here.
See if I can get this thing apart. See if we can fix it.
Let's do it. Sure are.
It's a $65,000 block from the dealer.
No way.
Yeah, that's why they want us to build it.
No way.
Yeah.
65 grand?
For the engine from the dealer.
This is always something that's a little scary for mechanics when they're undoing camshafts that are loaded like that, especially on a dual overhead cam motor. They'll want to pop away on you, and you don't want to bust the cam cap. So be very careful when you do this. We're going to document what we got, and then we're going to do our best to verify that that's correct. A guy could have put this back together and not got the caps in the right order or something like that. I mean, there's just a million things that a guy could do putting this back together and not be right. This is all our responsibility now. Okay, let's get the heads off of it.
This head was way looser than this head.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you look at the dirt, I mean, you wonder, it doesn't look to me like they had the dang motor apart.
Right. I don't know how they would get bearings in it without taking it apart.
Ladies, you got to be pumped to do this. Check it out. Massive, massive.
Pretty good arm wrestler, that's for sure. Nope.
What's the deal there?
Looks like they stripped it out and re-tapped it.
My son, the genius. Apple don't fall far from the tree, right? Why my son's not listening, I'm going to tell you guys something. I know he makes this look easy, but he's been doing it since he's a little boy. He's learned a lot, so he figures stuff out, and that's so much of what we do around here. You just got to figure out how to make it work. Ouch! Oh, ouch! This is getting painful. A lot of times guys will have a crank and they'll think, hey, that's not so bad. Let's just roll bearings in it. And it doesn't work, ever. Okay, look at that, dude.
Well, so it looks like they started to try to pull that seal out for some reason. I think they screwed into it.
It came damn freaking close, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really mess up the girdle.
It ain't spun that bearing, but boy, I'll tell you, this guy was moments away from this block being screwed.
This one spun in the housing.
Did it?
Yeah.
Well, let's get it up out of there. This guy's $60,000 engine's not gonna cost him 60 grand to fix, but it's gonna need a little TLC. I mean, it's a nice crank though,
Yeah.
man. That's a sweet forged crank.
This is a flat plane crank. So if you look, see how these two weights are to each other?
Uh-huh.
These two weights are to each other?
Uh-huh.
It's pretty much like an inline crank, straight six. It's called a flat plane crank. You can spin them up way faster.
And no inherent vibrations built into it.
Well, yeah, and the balance, when you balance them, you don't use bob weights. Tell me what that is right there. You can feel it.
Look at that. A forged crank with a big old crack across it. Holy moly. Okay, how in the heck did that happen? That come from the factory that way? That's like super, super unusual. All right, let's call the dealer. Give him the great news. Hi, this is Dave at Dave's Auto Center in... Hey, did you receive the text?
I did. I reviewed those pictures that you sent over, and that's not looking great.
It's not, and what can you tell me so that I get it from the horse's mouth?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. So here's where we started with this whole thing. We got this C63 in here. It's a 2014. You know, it came from a guy who basically bought it off his buddy's son who had died. Now, that guy, the original owner, the guy that died, had the car. Evidently, it got some sort of wreck, collision. He hit something, I don't know. It broke the front pan. And basically, the original owner, had it fixed at Mercedes-Benz. They put like $6,000 worth of parts into it. The current owner gets in it, drives it around for about 20 minutes, and starts puking oil out the rear main. The dealer doesn't want to touch it now. They don't want to do anything about the work they did. So we get it in here. I see that the rear main's like popped out of it. I didn't know if it was an installation error or whatever. The original problem of when this car got wrecked, and what I'm fairly certain happened, Dave, because there was never really any miles put on this vehicle in between these repairs.
Gotcha.
I think that the insurance company, because it was such a low mileage car, the car was worth so much, they bought an engine block for 16 grand. Rather than buying a $50,000 engine, right?
Okay.
Then they were going to pay the technician to swap it over. Well, what happened is I think the technician took the bottom half of the case off of the block that they bought and put it on the original block, right? Without taking everything completely apart. So now you and I both know that's a line board unit. You can't do that. And I think that's what we're dealing with here.
I had the wrong story. Somebody told me that somebody had rolled main bearings in here, and I was like, this isn't a say like a Chevy 350 where the main caps come off individually. You can't roll mains in this motor. So at first,
no. You look at those cases on the back side. You can look at the casting numbers on those on the back end of that engine. Those numbers on those case halves should match, and they don't. I think the bottom case halves got busted, and I think somebody just kind of flat rated it. They put the case on from the block that they bought, and I think that our block that we need somewhere is probably somebody's coffee table now.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is like a hack job of all hack jobs, is what you're telling me.
It kind of is, and it sucks because the guy's got a car here that's got 2,700 miles on it. New engine, I think installed, is going to probably run him about 40, but that's still a lot of money for a car that's not really worth it at this point.
This is making a little sense for what I found, because the bearings are scuffed on those 3 rear rod journals, which would mean the align board's off. But I can fix all that. That's not the end of the world. But I got a crack. Did you see the crack in the crank?
I saw the crank.
Yeah.
I didn't see the crack. I just got off the phone with Mercedes-Benz. There is one crankshaft still available, and it's $5,500.
The block I could line hone. I could fix it. I could make the 2 case halves be perfect. Let me go ahead and wet mag the crank. I'll get you some good pictures, and we'll make a decision. But it's a fixer. But do we need a crank, or can I fix yours?
Awesome. It's bad news, but it's good news, for sure. All right, I'll just wait to hear back from you before I call the customer and see what our next steps are here.
You bet. Okay, thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye. That's a weird thing. The way he was explaining that is the car had been in a major total wreck, and he thinks that some yo-ho, I'm going to call them yo-hos, you can't change the whole main bearing girdle and just change that out. They're matched pairs. The top half and the bottom half have to be machined together so that the hole is centered. There's the reason that the main bearings are scuffed. Joey.
Yeah.
I got the rest of the story. Apparently, the car was a total wreck. The lower pan or girdle had been smacked and was busted. So someone swapped out the lower girdle.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, you're like,
Wow.
I know. You know, people think just because it bolts up, it should work. So we need to go ahead and take the crank out.
Okay, well, I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Okay.
Those pistons look brand new. Yeah, wow. I would reuse those pistons. The other thing that's really cool about this crank that I've never seen before is it's called a flat plane crank. All the weights are counter to each other. So on a regular, like small block Chevy V8, it's not on a plane, but each one of these throws are equal to each other. You can spin them up way faster. It's a better quality crank. They're not cheap. It is really bad. You can see the babbitt's actually curled over the sides.
I got a $6,000 crank. Check the part number at your Mercedes dealer, $5,900 for a crankshaft, forged crank. And I'm about to show you a crack that's like so good, not good for the customer, but good for visual here. And my wet mag. Step into my dark room. Okay, come on in.
So if you look, you've got that crack there, and then 180.
Whoa. Wow. That
And you can
crank.
tell 180 from that.
Here's the thing that's interesting to me. This was the forging line. The hammer was doing boom, 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 boom when it was making this crank. And it makes you kind of wonder, has that been in there since day one? That crank is junk. We have a crank welder. That's what this machine is right here. This is actually a crank welder. In fact, here's a bunch of cranks that we're getting ready to work on and fix. But we ain't fixing that one. That looks to me like that's been that way. There's a problem in the grain structure. So, wow. It's not a dealer. He's a big Mercedes-Benz repair shop, so I want to correct that. It's not a dealer. It's a big Mercedes shop. They've got a great reputation over there in Denver. They got stuck with this from the dealer. And everybody said the dealer would never do that. They'd put an engine in there. And I was like, that's right, they would do that. Dealers don't go into engines. What we think has happened here is that somebody bought a lower case half off another engine and thought they could get away by just putting it on this one. I see you roll your eyes, dude. I'm not making this up. This is the story I got. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna mate these two case halves back together, and we're gonna check our line bore in here with our bore gauge and find out, is that why those bearings were so scraped up, is because we've got a case half that's not matched. You'll see the steel insert in the aluminum housing. That's steel, and that's steel. That's why you can rev this motor to 7 grand and it'll hold on. We've torqued down our main girdle, and now we're gonna check the line bore here. Whip it around. If that's true, we are screwed. It's a 2 thou difference. Let's see what it is here. We know the problem with this motor. Let's go ahead and go all the way. Guide me back here, Jess. 1.5. Let's turn it 90 degrees. Yeah, we're almost 3 thou.
Oh, you could really feel it on this side. This right here going down.
You can feel it.
You can feel that's like, you know, 3 thou-ish.
If you look here, how do you fix a $50,000, $60,000 AMG motor like this? With steel inserts on this side and aluminum on the other, the align hone won't take kindly to that.
Not 3 thou.
You're right, not 3 thou. Even to save this block is going to be a lot of work, and it can be done. The rear main, I'm not too worried about. I could pin the rear main as long as the rear main is like centered on the, you know, the crank seal.
Does Mercedes sell a bare block? Is that more cost effective?
That's a good question. That might be cheaper just to get a bare block and then build their components, because I mean, we're talking $7,000 to $10,000 worth of machine work on this block to make it right.
Hey, what's going on, man?
So I sent you a picture of the crank, the cracks. One is one side of the crank, and the other crack is 180 degrees on the other side of the journal. That crank is cracked clean through.
Right on the forging line.
Yeah, and you know, I've got the block completely disassembled. We reassembled the lower half to the top half, torqued it all down, and then dial bore gauged it. And it's 2.5 to 3 inches out around. The girdle, the bottom girdle on this thing has got steel inserts in it. And the top half of the block is aluminum. Now, I can't align hone 3 inches. That's a line bore. You will run into trouble trying to align hone half the block is steel and the other half is aluminum. It'll eat the aluminum and not touch the steel. The other problem that I'm faced with is the seal housing. In order to line bore this block, I have to remove material, you know, of the cap, so to speak. And the cap on this is the whole freaking girdle. So I can fly cut that girdle, you know, I can take 5/1000ths off that girdle to reduce the size of my hole, then align bore the mains, and get them back to size so that we can get standard bearings and all that in the block. But now I've reduced the size of my rear main seal. Okay, because I've shaved off 5. Now, is 5 going to be a problem? Probably not.
What you're saying is the bore on the journal for the rear main housing is going to be shrunk 5 to 10 thousandths-ish, probably.
Yes.
What you're saying?
Yeah.
That's not a problem, Dave. What I'll do is I'll just put that seal in the lathe here, and they got a lot of like neoprene on the outside, and I'll just shave 5 thousandths off that seal. That's not a big deal. 5 thousandths on a seal is not going to make a big deal.
We're on the same page. I don't think so either.
I got a machinist out in Kansas who, you know, buried in freaking sprint car motors right now, and he's like, I got so much work, I don't even want to touch it. But
it's kind of where we're faced with this. This is, I mean, this is a nightmare. I mean, can you price a block?
It's $18,000 and it's not available. Basically, submit this part to Mercedes, prepay for it up front, and then they make it.
Whoa.
And it takes 3 to 4 months to make it. Right now, I don't even know if they would make it. The problem is there's nothing available.
So my next question is, have you used parted this thing, dude, and just find a used I mean, a Mercedes used it.
So we got 3 used motors, Dave. We got 3 used motors, and all of them were junk. Every one of them.
You know what I'm trying to do here, dude? I'm trying to find a good core.
It's $10,000, $8 to $10,000 for, you know, a used engine. I mean, probably.
Right. Well, I'm just brainstorming with you here.
You know, the problem is that the car's got 2,000 miles on it, a little over, and that engine has virtually no mileage on it. So you know, what's out there is 50,000 plus mile engines. You know.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't want that. But I don't know, between what he wants and what he's going to get is 2 different things.
It's a full build. I'm not going to, you know, there's no Band-Aid going on here. So we're going to need at least a new ring package, full gasket set. I know you sent me a bunch of stuff. I haven't looked through it in the box. Did you send me rod bolts?
I'm going to send you those with the crank if everything, you know, obviously price dependent here now.
Yeah. So let me get with him and Joey, and I'll be talking to you on Monday.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Just let me know what's going on here, and hopefully we can get this thing fixed.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, you got to do a lot of work, man, to make this right. We'll see. Then we'll make some more measurements, determine what it's going to take, see if we can help them out. All right.